So, hello everybody and welcome. Yes, welcome back here at BSN Network. Welcome you back here at BSN Network. This is the BSN Network podcast here today. It is Monday, November 23rd. Always having a good day so far and a good rest of their day. Yes, their day. It is, in fact, November 23rd, Monday, November 23rd today. 2 days or 3 days away from Thanksgiving Day football games. A lot of good football on this upcoming week. Hopefully everybody enjoyed their rest of their weekend as well. Hopefully everybody had a good weekend. It is, in fact, Monday. Hopefully everybody enjoyed the football that was on once again. Saturday packed of a lot of good college football games. Sunday packed with the NFL, and always the New York Jets have to ruin it all. Another brutal performance by the New York Jets as they lose 34-28. And, you might sit here and say, 34-28 is close. I will tell you how the game went, and you will probably change your opinion by the end of that. And if you don't, then that is what it is. I personally think that you probably will, but we'll talk about it and see what you all think. Another good weekend of football in the books, though. Another good weekend of sports in the books. Another good Monday night game, too, tonight. There was another good Monday night game tonight. Last week, it was a good game between the Vikings and the Bears. The matchup was good. I'll tell you what. The Monday night games haven't been pretty bad this season. The Jets-Patriots game, I know, was not the most best game ever, but, it was a close game. So, it was a very close game. It came down to literally the kick. Literally the kick by Nick Folk. So, you might be thinking it's a bad team, but as for quality of games, that was a good game. Last week's game was close, but it was ugly. And today's game, you got two very good teams in the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and the Los Angeles Rams. And it's going to be tough to win for both those teams. It's going to be a good game. Both teams are very good on defense. Both teams have their strengths on offense. It's going to be a fun game to watch. I'm excited to watch it. That's obviously tonight. Topics for today are the NFL games / the Jets. We'll give you my take on the Jets, give you my little bit of my Jets rant. All that at this point, 0-10, I don't even care anymore. It's to the point now where I'm sitting there watching the final 6 games of this season. We win, we lose. I'm assuming do we go 0-16, but I'm to the point now where, you know what, I don't even care. I'm to the point now where you lose. You know what? We're eliminated from the playoffs. What's the, it's what's the point in me wasting my energy or yelling about this team at this point? That's just awful. It's horrendous. Every bad thing you could say about this team is probably what it is. So it is really horrible. So these are the topics today. We got the NFL games / the Jets. We got fantasy football results. Give my fantasy football. This was a very good week in fantasy football for me. A very good week in fantasy football. Won in both leagues. Bearing an insane day, an insane 60-point performance out of Ronald Jones, which I don't think is going to happen. But I'm winning both leagues. I'm winning 140-85 in one league. I still got Mike Evans to go, so I could possibly, I'm hoping maybe to get to 150, 155. He catches a touchdown, gets 30 yards, and that'll be pretty good. And then, I think that would be pretty good. And in my other league, I won barely, 119, 107. He's got no one left. I've got no one left. So tonight's kind of just waiting to tomorrow to set my lineup for next week. So with all that being said, also we have the college football games. Like I said, a lot of good games to break down. Another good weekend of college football. I was kind of upset because without Miami, I was wondering if I was going to be a little lost, not knowing what to watch, because usually I'm watching Miami. Obviously, Miami had the outbreak, so they're not playing, obviously, on Saturday, and then they're not playing this weekend either. They're going to play the week this Saturday, so they're going to play in December again. But I was very thrilled by a lot of the games. Indiana, Ohio State was a close game. Rutgers, Michigan went to 3 overtimes. That was a close game. There's a ton of other games, too. There's a lot of other games. I know I watched more. It's not coming to me just yet. But, yeah, a lot of good weekend of football. By the way, if you could see the lights up, I put them up. I usually do something like that for, Thanksgiving, Christmas. They look much better. They look good, decent on camera. But they look much better actually sitting here because I don't have the best camera in the world. I will tell you that for sure. They look much better sitting here doing the show than they do on camera, but it's still some sort of decoration. Obviously getting to the holiday season, so I added lights I usually do that. I'll probably add more once December rolls around. This is kind of a Thanksgiving thing, and then I'll keep the lights and add like Christmas stuff once Christmas rolls around. Not on Christmas Day, but I'll probably do it early December or so. But yeah, the lights do look much better here when you're sitting in studio and talking, and then they do on camera, but I think they still look decent. You could obviously see. That was one thing I was very worried about on camera, is because some things don't always show up great on this. Like, you can't really see my cup very well. It's tough to see, especially with the lights, but it does say BSN Network. Sometimes some of this stuff is tough to see just because I don't have the best camera in the world. I was worrying that these were going to be tough to see, but they're clear. They just look much more brighter than they really are. Or no, they actually look much more dull. They look much bigger on camera. Like, it looks like a big ball of light. They're so tiny, but on camera, the way it comes out, they look so much bigger, which I guess isn't a bad thing. But anyway, enough with my light talk. Enough with the lights. We'll get into the sports show now. So with all that being said, this is the BSN Network podcast, and let's get right into it. So the New York Jets, and another good weekend of football, though. The Jets did lose, but before we get into that, another good weekend of football in the books. We had a lot of good games. The Sunday night game was very good. Chiefs came back and won. Packers-Colts game was very good. I watched the tail end of that one after the Jets game. The Cowboys-Vikings game was a good game. I did not watch that. I saw some of the highlights. I did not watch it because I was watching the Jets game, but that was a very good game. The Texans-Patriots was a pretty nice game. The Panthers-Lions was bad. Saints-Falcons, Taysom Hill did his job, went out, had a good game, had a solid performance in fantasy, had a solid performance in real life. He did very well for the New Orleans Saints. There was a lot of good games on this weekend that ended up panning out very good. So there's a lot of good ones. Let's get into my game picks. I don't really want to talk too long about this, not because of the whole show, but because it was an ugly week for me game pick wise. It was a good week in terms of quality football games, but in terms of my game picks, it was a horrendous week. By far my worst week yet of game picks. As a matter of fact, I'm right now sitting below 500 for the week. That is why my pick tonight, I'm rooting very hard for that team to win, although I kind of just want to see a good game. But that is why my pick tonight, I'm hoping that the team that I pick wins very much this time, because I don't want to finish under 500. I really don't. I would much rather go 500. You know, it's not great, but 500 is much better than finishing 6-8. I would much rather finish 7-7, 500 be a solid record than finishing 6-8. So definitely hoping that tonight's game goes my way. But this week I went 6-7 on my game picks. A lot of games that panned out. I was not expecting the Bengals to lose. They lost Joe Burrow. Hopefully he is okay as a torn ACL. We'll talk about that in just a little bit. Not expecting that Colts game. I thought the Packers, especially the Packers, got it rolling. Colts came back and won. I was not expecting the Cowboys to come out and play like they did. They did come out and play very well. They won. I was not expecting that. I was really not expecting the Dolphins, being one of the hottest teams in the NFL, to come out flat like they did against the Denver Broncos. Was not expecting that at all. The Ravens-Titans game, I'm not angry. I mean, I picked the Ravens. But the Titans went out and played. If you had to choose one to get wrong, that probably would have been it. Just because both teams were evenly matched. But obviously Tennessee came out, ended up being victorious in the end of it. The Lions-Panthers game, now I got that one correct. Saints-Falcons got that one correct as well. Got a couple other ones. Chiefs correct. I was worried. The Chiefs were trailing. I was like, oh, great. I'm going to be 6-8. Or I'm going to be 5-8. I'm going to automatically finish on 500. Chiefs ended up coming back. But yeah, so with that 6-7 week this week, hopefully turns into 7-7. But we'll wait till tonight to see. With that 6-7 week, that moves me to 109-57 on the season. So for me to get up to 120, 125 wins, this is not the week you would want. I still do have 5 weeks to go to try to bounce back from this performance. Hopefully, I'm going to need a big week next week. I was hoping 120 to 125, but that's not the case. I don't know if that's going to be the case now. It's 109 wins. I mean, I could still get it, I think, but this week definitely does not help. I went 6-7, bumps my record to 109-57, so not the greatest, but still way above 500. I'm still feeling like I'm going to finish above 500. I'm feeling that I'm going to still end the season on a pretty high note, and still feel that I'm going to get into the 120 range. Just not a great week here. It's going to happen. You're going to have those weeks, but It stinks that it had to come now because I was really rolling. I was having a couple good weeks. I had the 11-3 week. I had the 10-5 week or whatever. I had a couple good weeks going, and it stinks that it has to end here. But obviously, hopefully week 12 I pick it up. Obviously, Thanksgiving Day games, there's 3 of them, so I'll have a couple of those picked as well. With all that being said, let's get into the actual talking part of this podcast. Let's get actually into the talking about the games part of this podcast today. Let's get into the New York Jets performance because once again, the New York Jets come out and are a complete embarrassment to New York sports once again as they completely embarrass themselves in front of many, many, many people that were watching that game. They completely go out there and look flat out atrocious once again. Now, I will sit here and tell you this was not the worst performance I have seen the Jets play this season because I've seen much worse. I think the worst performance the Jets had this season was probably against the Dolphins when we lost 24-0. I'm not just saying that because that was a shutout. I am really telling you that I think that was our worst performance. I mean, we did nothing. We literally could not do anything. We took a 28-yard sack that game. That was probably the worst game the Jets had all year. I mean, the Jets were just horrendous. 24-0. I mean, the Jets were just absolutely horrendous. So, we went out yesterday, and we started off very strong. I mean, the New York Jets started off incredibly strong. They started off incredibly strong. They blocked the punt in the first drive of the game. So, the Chargers driving a little bit, get out. They punt the ball. Henry Anderson blocks the punt. Jets get the ball. They drive, 30 yards, and they score a touchdown therein. Right there, you're up 6-0 because we missed the extra point. I'll get it to Sam Ficken in a second because I was infuriated with the way he performed yesterday and infuriated with his coaching staff on why to put him in. And I'll get to him in a second. Like I said, there's a lot to uncover in this game in a short amount of time because I also want to get to the other games. But we blocked the punt. I mean, right there, I was very happy. I mean, we blocked the punt there. We score. We missed the field goal. I mean, when you miss the extra point, it really does take the energy out of you. I think even on a team standpoint, you score, you're all hyped, you're pumped, everyone's excited. You're really like, okay, we got off to a good start. We blocked the punt, and you missed the field, and you missed the extra point. It's almost like all that energy just got sucked out of you and put on over to the other team or put on over to midfield where it's anyone's taking. Then everything, ever since that missed extra point, everything went downhill for the New York Jets. The Chargers drive downfield, fumble on the 2-yard line, Jets get the ball back. Now, this is where I think the game went from, okay, the Jets might be able to maybe, I'm not saying win, but maybe take a 2-score lead here, right? Because we drove downfield in 4 plays and scored a touchdown, and then we drove 30 yards, 4 plays, got a touchdown. We obviously blocked the punt. You get the fumble from a very good receiver in Keenan Allen. He doesn't fumble that much. He fumbles the football. You get the ball back on about your own 2-yard line. You're going to have to travel the length of the field, but you're like, oh my gosh, we blocked the punt. We forced the fumble. I mean, everything that could be possibly going right for the Jets is going right, and everything that could be going wrong for the Chargers is going wrong. And in that moment, that is where that game went from very good for the New York Jets to, okay, we got to remember, this is the New York Jets. That exact next play, and I don't know what this play calling was. I like when the Jets pass the ball. I don't like many runs, and I found the Jets were doing that a whole lot. Yesterday was running the football, running the football on first down, running the football on second down, and a lot of times I found it set it up for a third down and long, and that is not what you want, especially with this demented and broken offense that we have. Joe Flacco gets hike, gets the ball, calls hike, gets the ball. He turns quickly and throws an awful throw to Jamison Crowder. I mean, it had to be one of the worst throws I have ever seen a quarterback make. I mean, it was horrendous. I don't know where he was trying to throw the football. It was obviously intended for Crowder, but it was horrendous. Overthrew him by about 50 feet and absolutely was just a horrendous throw. And they take it in for a 1-yard intercept, pick 6. Because you had the ball your own 2, throw a pick, right? You literally threw the pick in the end zone, and they ended up scoring. There's a pick 6. That's where the momentum went from, okay, the Jets are playing well. We forced a fumble. We blocked a punt. We already got a touchdown up on the board. We're playing well. And then you get the ball back, and you're like, oh my gosh, we're playing even better. And then that is where the normal New York Jets came into play, and everything from there went downhill. The Chargers have a 17-point second quarter, go into the half down 24-6 the New York Jets. Jets come out of the half, have a decent third quarter, not enough though. Ficken misses another extra point. And let me ask you this. You have Sergio Castillo, who has been dominant. Nailed a 55-yarder, has only missed one, which wasn't his fault. It was blocked. He's been 9 for 10 on the year. Ficken's been shaky, and I'm not just saying that because of yesterday's performance. You could look at the stats and you'll understand. Ficken's been shaky ever since he's taken over the kicking job for the New York Jets. He was shaky yesterday. He's been shaky early on in the year. He was even shaky last season. He's been shaky pretty much ever since the New York Jets started him at kicker. Now, has he been awful? No. Has he been, probably the future kicker? I don't think so, because I don't think you can really trust him 100%. But he's been shaky. And yesterday, I think, was the point to where you got to say, we got to release him. You got to get rid of him. Castillo's been nailing field goals for you. I don't care about the age. Ficken's young. Castillo's older. Get the guy who could put it through the uprights. I don't care if he's young. Castillo's older. He's 30 years old. That's not old for normal. But for football, that's 30 years old is kind of older, for football. When you get in your 30s, for any sport, 30s is kind of old. Now, for a regular everyday human, 30s is still pretty young. But for sports terms, 30s is getting up there in age. So Castillo is 30. He's getting a little older, and Ficken's young. But I don't care about the age difference. Can you please just get the guy who's going to put it in through the uprights? That's all I'm asking for. It doesn't have to be a huge name like Adam Vinatieri or Steven Gostkowski or someone like that. It doesn't have to be a huge name. Get a guy who can put it through the uprights. That's all I'm asking for. Because you know how many times that could cost you a game? It didn't cost the Jets yesterday because they were getting blown out so badly. But you know how many times that could cost the team a game? It almost costed the Jets. Because if the Jets do go down and score a touchdown, they would have had it went for 2. And we'll talk about that in just a second. So can you please just get a guy? I don't care if he's younger. I don't care if the guy is older. If he can put it through the uprights, have him kick the ball. Sergio Castillo has been playing good. Ficken's been shaky throughout his career. So why put him back in when you don't even know he's been dealing with a little bit of injury? Why rush him back, put him in, and have him miss 2 kicks that were brutally missed? And the one he made hit off the crossbar and went in. So that was another one, too. That wasn't even a good kick. He barely made that one, too. And you're still going to play him. Another bad decision by this coaching staff. You should know. Oh, he looks good in practice. There's a difference between practice and a game. That was another big thing. I thought the missed kicks really hurt the Jets because when you have a missed kick, it takes the momentum out of you and really brings it to their team. Because you're like, you know what? Now all we have to do is score in a field goal and we're already winning. It's weird. It's very weird. New York Jets come out at the half and we're decent. And let me mind you something, too. Okay, we talk all about, we got to use our receivers. Perryman, 0 targets, no catches. This is the first half. Perryman, no targets, no catches. Mims, 1 target, no catch. Crowder, 1 target, no catch. If you want to really use those big receivers, you got to give them more than 1 target, and you got to get them to catch the ball. Okay? You can't target the guy 1 time and expect him to make that big of an impact. That's another thing on Adam Gase and this coaching staff. You talk so good about this receiving core. This, and I will tell you what, if you had to take a positive, this receiving core has been very solid this year when they're together. You look at what they've done when they're all together. Crowder's had a good year. Perryman's had a good year. Mims is, I think, the first Jets receiver in the history of the Jets to have his first 4 games have more than 40 yards receiving or something. He's had an excellent start. He's been everything we could ask for and some in his start to his career. He's exceeded my expectations. I'll tell you that for sure. Guy's been unreal. Made a couple great catches yesterday. Outside of the receiving core, this team's awful. But when you talk so good about this receiving core and say, we got the guys around him and stuff, why won't you throw the ball to them? And it's not like he missed Crowder too. There was a play where Mims was wide open across the middle, and it wasn't like they were locked down. He missed Mims wide open across the middle on a 3rd down and 10. He had the first down, and sure enough, Joe Flacco throws an incompletion. I mean, this is a veteran quarterback. You've got to see him. You was literally staring at Mims, and he just didn't get it off to him. Same thing with Crowder. There was a couple times where Crowder was open, and instead they don't throw it to him. So that's not on the receiving core. It wasn't like they were locked down. It's just straight up the play calling by Gaze and this quarterback and Flacco, who is awful. I mean, we're 0-10. Put Mike White in. I don't even care at this point. We're 0-10. Put him in. See what the young guy can do. Right? Because see what Mike White's not the future, but see what he can do. I mean, put him in. One of these games, we're going to be getting crushed by 40. Put the backup in. I don't care if Darnold's playing or not. Put the backup in. Just see what he can do. Instead of having the guy sit the bench because Flacco hasn't been that good. And he made some really bad throws yesterday. So, the New York Jets fall to the Los Angeles Chargers, 34-28. It was technically 34-26. But with 9 seconds left, the Chargers had a safety because they purposely got a safety to run the clock out. The punter got the ball, ran backwards, took a safety, 1 second left. And I'll tell you what, that had to be the worst lateral attempt I've ever seen. I don't know if Braxton Berrios lost track of time. I don't know what it was. I really don't. And I'm not just saying this because it's the Jets. He might have lost track of time. He got the ball and returned it like it was regular. He didn't even try to. He had guys behind him to lateral to. He had Ty Johnson right next to him, behind him, to lateral to him. I don't know. I'm actually not even kidding. Braxton Berrios might have lost track of time. He might have thought you could have got a playoff. Because they punted the ball to him. He was about midfield, and he takes the tackle. He gets tackled. He had a guy right behind him to lateral it. Instead, he lowered his shoulder and tried to get it. I don't know. I don't know if he lost track of time, or I don't know if he just straight up just forgot to lateral the ball, or if he really thought he could drive downfield and score. But whatever it is, that was the worst lateral attempt I've ever seen. And the New York Jets fall to Los Angeles Chargers 34-28, and are now officially, although they were eliminated before the season even started, they are now officially, mathematically, eliminated from playoff contention at an 0-10 record. Now, here are some of the numbers. Joe Flacco went 15-13, 205 yards, 13.7 was average, 2 touchdowns, and an interception. He took a sack as well. His rating was 80.6. Like I said, 50% throwing wasn't great. It wasn't an awful performance, but Flacco definitely made some awful throws. Rushing-wise, Gore had 15 carries for 61 yards, 4.1 was his average, a touchdown. P. Ryan had 8 carries, 33 yards, 4.1 was his average. He also had a touchdown. Mims had 8 targets, 3 catches for 71 yards. He had a big day yesterday as well. Perriman, 4 targets, 2 catches, 54 yards, and a touchdown. Chris Herndon, 3 targets, 2 catches, 32 yards, and a touchdown. I'll tell you, we got to get rid of Herndon. I know he scored yesterday, but he dropped a wide open ball. Oh, my God, we got to get rid of the guy. We have to get rid of him. Crowder had three targets, 1 catch for 16 yards. He really did not do anything. Thanks to Flacco really making sure to give him the ball. Herbert went 37-49, 366 yards, 9.9 was average, 3 touchdowns, no picks, 3 sacks. His rating was 116.5. Balaj had 16 carries, 44 yards, 2.8 was his average. Keenan Allen had 19 targets, 16 catches, 145 yards, and a touchdown. Mike Williams had 7 targets, 4 catches, 72 yards, 18 was his average, and a touchdown. Hunter Henry had 7 targets, 4 catches, 48 yards, 12 was his average, and a touchdown. I'll tell you what. If the I'll tell you one thing. If Herbert made a couple better throws to Hunter Henry, this game would have been 40s. He missed Henry in the end zone 3 times. He missed him in the corner of the end zone, missed him across the middle, and then missed him again in the corner of the end zone. Or it might have been in the corner of the end zone 3 times. And then he hit him in the corner of the end zone as well. So maybe it was 3 times, he missed him twice, hit him once. I might be mixing that up. If you could just clarify that, comment down below. But I think if I'm remembering correctly, the touchdown was in the corner of the end zone, and I think he missed him also twice in the corner of the end zone. So you're talking about missing him twice in the corner of the end zone, twice missing him in the corner of the end zone, 3 times he targeted him 3 times. So he targeted him 3 times in the end zone and missed him twice in the quarter, hit him once in the corner, which resulted in a 34-28 win for the Chargers. Chargers moved to 3-7 on the year, and the New York Jets fall to not many teams can do it this good, an 0-10 record. Not many teams lose this good. The Jets are the best team in the NFL at losing, and that's That's a bad thing. So the Jets moved 0-10 on the season. Kind of just, it is what it is at this point. They're not a playoff team. Gotta see what the draft brings and what this offseason brings for the New York Jets. We have the second most cap space in all the league. At the moment, depending on what some of the moves we make, we could even have more. But at the moment, the New York Jets are on pace to get the first overall pick and another dreadful season, more than likely 0-16, and I would not be surprised if that's the case. Anyway, these are the completed games this week. Another big week of football. Let's get right into it. Kansas City Chiefs beat the Oakland Raiders, or not the Oakland Raiders, sorry. I'm so used to it. Kansas City Chiefs beat the Las Vegas Raiders 35-31. This was a good game. The Chiefs came out. This game to start off was a pretty back and forth game. Raiders scored, Chiefs scored, Raiders scored, Chiefs scored. It was kind of back and forth, back and forth. It went into the half with the Raiders having a 17-14 lead. But you got to know if you were the Raiders. It's Mahomes, it's Kelsey, it's Hill, it's Elaire, it's this offense, it's Andy Reid, it's this team, it's this overall Kansas City Chiefs. You got to realize they're going to come back. And I'll tell you what, that final drive of the game had to be one of the most ugliest drives, or ugliest defensive drives I have ever seen for a defense. I mean, unless if it was just Patrick Mahomes straight up just in being insane. But, I mean, you cannot, and you absolutely cannot, and Kelsey caught the winning touchdown. You cannot possibly expect to win the game against the Kansas City Chiefs. Expect to stop them on that drive. Expect that to happen. And you leave Travis Kelsey wide open in the middle of the end zone. I mean, you cannot possibly do that. There was not a Raiders defender within 20 yards of him. That's a little bit of exaggeration. Maybe 10 yards. But, I mean, you cannot leave him that wide open. And Patrick Mahomes threw it across the middle, right to Kelsey for the win. And the Raiders dropped a real bad one. I mean, the Raiders had this one in their hands. And once again, they let it go. They really did. Chiefs got their revenge. Obviously, all the news that came out this week about when the Raiders won, they took the victory lap around Arrowhead, celebrating and stuff. Chiefs knew. They came in with this game, a little chip on their shoulder, kind of showing everybody, we really are the better team. They went out there last night, played a very good football game, and won 35-31. And I think Mahomes at this point is the leading for the MVP. I think he's going to win another one. I mean, this guy is just unbelievable. And I've said this last year. I'll say it. I said it 2 years ago. I said it last year, and I'll say it again this year. Mahomes is the best quarterback in the NFL. I know there's all this Russell Wilson and Lamar Jackson talk. Mahomes is the best all-around quarterback in the NFL, and its stats show it. And I think even if you just straight up watch him on TV, his play shows it. Best quarterback right now in the NFL, easily Patrick Mahomes. And the Chiefs win 35-31. Now I move on to the Packers and the Colts. This one came down to the wire in overtime. Rodrigo Blankenship connected on a field goal to end it. Colts won this one 34-31. I'll tell you what, this was definitely a close game all around. The thing that hurt the Packers here was early turnovers early in the game, which didn't completely hurt them because the Packers got off to a very quick start. They were winning 28-14. But there was definitely some early moments in that game where they really messed up. Rodgers had the fumble. He threw an interception. Early on in that game, it was not looking good for the Green Bay Packers, but they turned it around in that first half and played very well overall in that first half. There's a couple moments in that game where they struggled, but they were not those. That's the problem too. The Colts were not able to take advantage of those turnovers, and I think if they take advantage of those two turnovers, I mean, you're talking here about and maybe a blowout, not having to come down to a field goal in overtime. Obviously, Valdez-Scantling fumbled the ball in overtime. Colts got it. Rodrigo Blankenship hits the game winner. And the Colts, man, we moved to 7-3 on the year. This is a Colts team that's a pretty solid team. Packers fall to 7-3 on the season. Packers got to get a little bit better on that defensive end of the ball. Their secondary's been a little iffy. They definitely got to get better there. And the Packers offense did everything they could. Just a late game turnover really hurts them. Now I move on to the Cowboys and the Vikings game. This game was very good. I mean, this Cowboys win, that sets up that Thanksgiving Day game between the Washington football team and the Dallas Cowboys. That sets up that game to be a very, very good game. And I'm excited to watch that game. That's going to be a very fun game. I'm excited to watch all the Thanksgiving Day games, to be honest with you. I love Thanksgiving Day football games. This year, it's the Lions and someone, as I know the Lions always play, and it's the Steelers-Ravens, As a matter of fact, I could literally just pull it up right now. It's the Texans, Lions, Washington, Cowboys, football, Redskins, Cowboys, and then the Ravens, Steelers. So those are your games for Thanksgiving. So there's a lot of good games. You got the Texans, Lions on 12:30. You got the Cowboys football team, Cowboys, Red Washington, 4:30, and then you got the nightcap at 8:20 p.m. Standard Time, the Ravens, Steelers. So you got all of those games. So another packed day of Thanksgiving football. But yeah, back to this. So the Cowboys obviously have a quick turnaround, and then with that Cowboys win yesterday, that makes the NFC East a tie. You got 3-7, 3-7, 3-7, 3-6-1. The Eagles obviously 3-6-1. So that makes that NFC East pretty much tied together. 3 teams in that NFC East have the top 10 picks. You got the Skins, you got the Cowboys, and you got the Giants, all within the top 10, and all 3 of those teams have a shot to make the playoffs. That just goes to show you how weak that division really is. But the Cowboys, back to kind of the Cowboys game, this does make the division race even closer now. And also, back to my point with the Cowboys is Dalton Schultz caught that game-winning touchdown. Cowboys looked pretty good yesterday. I will tell you that for sure. I think this is the best the Cowboys have looked since Dak Prescott went down. They looked really good. And comment down below if you would agree. And maybe I'm forgetting another game, but I'm kind of sitting here thinking they looked awful against the Eagles. They looked bad again. I guess you could say the remainder of that Giants game. But outside of that, they've really looked horrible. I think by far this was their best game. I mean, I think the Cowboys by far went out here. And for the Vikings, this is an awful loss. I mean, this is a game you needed to win. You're 4-5 now. You're 4-6. This is one of these games you look at your schedule, and this is like a game where you literally like, oh my gosh, we can't lose this one. They ended up losing. This really damages the Vikings' playoff hopes as they try to crawl back from what was an awful start. But the Vikings fall yesterday. The Cowboys offense played very good. Defense hung in late. They win the game 31-28. This game was surprising. I mean, if you're going to sit here and tell me that Tua was going to get benched for Ryan Fitzpatrick, I would have thought you were crazy. Against the Denver Broncos, if it was against a team like, I don't know, maybe the Steelers or the Steelers or a team like this, whatever team it is, a very good defense, the Rams, the Steelers, teams like that. If you were to sit here and tell me it was against one of those teams, I would have still thought you were crazy, but I would have been like, okay, that's definitely possible. I mean, you look at these defensive fronts. I don't want to use the proper word benched because it wasn't all Tua's fault. I don't want to say the word benched because it wasn't like Brian Flores said, oh, he benched him because he was playing bad. I mean, Tua only had 83 yards total passing, and he did get sacked 6 times. And he made some really bad throws. So I don't know. I mean, sure, he went 11-20, I think 83-something yards, and he got sacked 6 times. 6 times against what a lot of people think is one of the most injured, outside of maybe the Niners, one of the most banged up defenses in all the league. So I don't want to sit here and tell you that he got benched because I don't know if that's the proper word because I don't know if he got benched. A lot of people did think he got injured on one of the sack plays. His foot got twisted. It's almost like his foot was like this, and when he got sacked, let's just say your foot's like this. When he got sacked, it went like that, almost. Like, it's kind of like when you're if you land on it awkwardly, something like that. That's what some people think, but he never limped off, and it wasn't like he was in any pain on the sideline. So you can't really say it's an injury. I think that might just be an assumption, but I don't want to sit here and say it's not an injury if it is, in fact, an injury, and if it is, hopefully he's okay, because you don't want to see that out of a young guy, especially like Tua, with everything he's been through, involving a big injury with the hip. But I don't think it was an injury. I think it might have just been straight up that they were getting crushed 20-10. They couldn't get anything going offensively, and maybe they were just worried, with him getting sacked so much. That could be another thing. But Brian, this would have been a smart decision with him getting sacked the way he was. He was getting sacked pretty much he got sacked 6 times, people. That's a lot for a quarterback to endure. And he got sacked 6 times. Maybe Brian Flores took him out because he didn't want him to get injured. He didn't want him to get injured. That's also a possibility. But props to this Broncos defense. One of the red hot teams in the NFL right now, one of the hottest teams in all the NFL right now, to stop them like they did, to stop Tua like they did. Very good game for the Broncos. And even though the Broncos have not had a lot of positives this year, and even though their defense has been struggling, offense has been struggling, overall as a team they've been struggling, this win's really good for them. This win really is. A team that's struggling, they do move to 4-6, so they're not completely out of it. But this was definitely a win. You got to sit here and if This was one of those wins where you got to sit here and, say this could be a game change. This could be a season-changing win. This is probably one of them. Next week, they've got the Saints, Chiefs, Panthers, Bills, Chargers, Raiders. So it definitely does get difficult for them. But at the moment, I think they're, definitely a big win. Even though they have a very difficult schedule and stuff, remaining, this is definitely a big win for them to stop a team like the Dolphins. They win 20-13. Browns beat the Eagles yesterday. It really one word to kind of sum up this game, and I'll keep this one short and sweet. Browns defense is very good. Eagles offense is very bad. Next game, we move on to the Ravens and the Titans. This game was very good. We did just get news that came in here on the podcast today that the Ravens have multiple positive cases. The Ravens have positive cases. The Ravens have closed their facility after receiving several positive COVID-19 cases. They're scheduled to play the Steelers on Thursday. More than likely, that game's in jeopardy now. But yeah, so Ravens do have positive cases. Just speaking of the Ravens, this came out a couple minutes ago. They have a positive cases. Hopefully it's not an outbreak. There's been cases, but there hasn't been an outbreak. Hopefully it does not turn into an outbreak, and they can play on Thursday. Hopefully that's the case, but we will see. I'm sure this story will still develop. The Titans went out yesterday and played really good. I mean, the Titans played yesterday very, very, very good. They went out. Their offense looked good. They started off very slow. They started off very, very, very slow. But they were able to come back. Derrick Henry with the big run late in the game and overtime to win it all, or not to win it all, but to win the game. It's a Titans team who really had a solid year this year. It really has had a solid year. They're 7-3 on the year. Ravens moved to 6-4. Of course, the Titans pick up a big win, and possibly maybe move in front of the Colts. The Colts end up picking up a big win as well. So that division is still coming down to the wire there. Titans win, though, 30-24. Tannehill was good. A.J. Brown had the big catch and a bunch of the strip tackles. Derrick Henry had a big run. The normal, very solid players on that team. Titans win 30-24. Now we move on to the Texans and the Patriots game. This game was, this is almost like this Patriots game reminds me a little of this Vikings game. Like how it is with the Patriots. This is a winnable game for the Patriots. This is a game you have in your hands. And I'm happy the Texans won because I hate the Patriots. You know how I am. Can't stand them. I know Brady's gone and stuff, and I know Belichick and them aren't succeeding. I still can't stand them. I will never like the Patriots. Okay? Even though the Patriots, have been on a win streak, even though the Texans have been struggling, with all that being said, the Patriots still went out and played awful, and the Texans went out and played good. And this is my point that I've been trying to prove for the whole season. I understand it's a Texans team that's 3-7 and not going to probably make the playoffs, bearing an insane 6-game win streak you're going to need. I understand that, but let's look at their upcoming schedule, and let's see some of the wins they can get. You're playing the Lions, that's a win. You can win that game. That's this Thursday. Then you're playing the Colts. That's another winnable game, too. You probably won't win that, but that's a winnable game. I don't think they win. Then you play the Bears. That's a winnable game. You play the Colts. That's tough. Bengals, I think any team can beat the Bengals. Without Joe Burrow, that Bengals team's so vulnerable now, then you can beat the Bengals. Titans are going to be tough. So you're sitting here and telling me that they could very well finish out the year 6-10, which isn't horrendous considering they started 1-6. They started the season 1-6. They started really 2-6. Considering they started the season 0-4, and going to their bye week, they were 1-6. So there's definitely, there's definitely some room for improvement. But I do think they can definitely beat the Lions. And I'm not going to tell you my game pick yet for Thanksgiving, but I do think they could beat the Lions. I also think they could very well beat the Bears. The Bears shown vulnerability. And I also think they could beat the Bengals. And maybe you do get the Titans a win there, because the Titans might be benching some of their players, not starting them all if they've clinched a playoff spot and if they clinched something and they don't want to get injured, right? Something like that. So there's a slim chance there for them to finish 6-10. Which isn't awful, but for the way the season started and all the firing the coaches, all the stuff that's been through that organization, for them to finish 6-10's kind of actually a high note for them. They came out yesterday, their offense looked very good and their defense even looked better. Texans came out once, had 27-0. Steelers fans, I'm sure, were nervous early on in this game. The Jaguars were up 3-0 for the first quarter and into the second quarter. And the Steelers could not get anything going on offense. They could not get anything going. They got the opposite of what they wanted on offense. They picked off Ben Roethlisberger. The Jaguars were playing very good here. And as a Jets fan, I want the Jaguars to win because that just gives us even a better chance to get the first pick in the draft. But the Steelers. The Steelers came out and looked awful. They came out and looked like they stayed in Pittsburgh. They came out and they looked like they were still in Pittsburgh and not even traveled down to Jacksonville. Talk about an awful performance early on for the Steelers. And I feel like this has been the common theme for the Jaguars. It really has been tough for them. You look at the Jaguars upcoming. You see their upcoming schedule. You don't probably see any really wins on here. They obviously won the first game of the season and started off strong. But you look at their remaining schedule here. You got the Browns, Vikings, Titans, Ravens, Bears, Colts. And not really a win you find in there. If anything, you catch the Colts on the final week of the season, sitting their players, not really starting their starting guys because they made the playoffs and they don't want to risk an injury. Outside of that, they ain't winning another game this season. Jaguars have looked awful. They've started off strong in games. They just can't finish. They brung the Texans to a close game. They had the Packers in a close game. Yesterday, they were winning 3-0. Their offense just can't do anything. Steelers go out and win 27-3. Washington and the Bengals. Washington won 20-9. Hopefully Burrow is okay. He obviously had a torn ACL. Hopefully he makes a speedy recovery. Really stinks for a guy like Joe Burrow and the Bengals to be going out there and for a team like the Bengals, a team that's been through a lot, and for Joe Burrow to tear his ACL the way he did, the first pick in the draft just stinks. Really does stink for a guy like him. Just a good guy and overall a very good football player. And it really does stink to see him go down the way he did. He went down bad. It was a very bad injury, and I hope that he is okay, and I hope that he comes back and is as good as he was when he started here. So obviously we'll see him play next year, but obviously torn ACL, that takes a long time to recover. So we'll definitely see him next season, but it definitely stinks for this Bengals team. And you look at this Bengals team, with Burrow, you could very well say that they're, 2-6-1 now? With Burrow, there's a chance that they beat the Giants. There's a chance that they beat the Cowboys, and they beat there's a chance that they beat the Giants and the Cowboys, and maybe you catch the Ravens benching their players. But outside of that, now, I don't think they beat the Giants, and the Cowboys are going to be tough now, even then, and with Ryan Finley, and you just don't know if you could really trust this team, and that's the problem. So, it really does stink for the Bengals, but Washington went out there and won. I'll tell you what, I'm kind of rooting for Washington to win that NFC East, and I'll tell you why. I think it's such a cool story with all that Alex Smith's been through, him being the starting quarterback, him to go out there and make a playoff and start in a playoff. I think that would be so cool, and I think it really would be amazing, and not only for the Redskins, but just for the NFL in general. To show everything he's been through, for him to go out there and play in a playoff game, I think that would be amazing. So I'm actually kind of rooting for the Washington football team, for Washington to go out there and be the to go out there and possibly win. And they have a winnable game against the Cowboys. They really do. They also, they're on the road for 3 games here, but they have a winnable game against the Cowboys. Very winnable game against the Niners, and they have a winnable game against the Panthers and the Eagles. These games are winnable, people. You got a winnable game this week. Let's just give them the wins to the winnable games. You get a win here against the Cowboys. Niners you can beat. Niners are banged up. You could beat them. Do I think it's going to happen? Maybe not, but there's definitely a chance. And then you could definitely beat the Panthers. The Panthers are not a great team. There's a chance. I don't know if you will. Let's say you give them 3 wins, so they're finished 6-10. And then the Eagles, maybe. You could definitely beat the Eagles. There's a chance there. Did they beat the Eagles early in the year? Yes, they did. So, they did. There's a chance you beat the Eagles. There's a chance you finish the year 6-10. You beat the Cowboys, you beat the Niners, and then the Eagles. That would put you at 6-10. Panthers, possibly 7-9. There's a chance. I think they finish the season at worst 5-11. Because I think the Cowboys, they have 4 winnable games. Cowboys, Niners, and Panthers, and Eagles. All they have to do is win 2 of those 4. Those are winnable games. The non-winnable games are the Steelers and the Seahawks. Those are the non-winnable games. But really the rest of their schedule isn't that strong. You got the Cowboys, then the Steelers, that's tough. And then you got the Niners, the Seahawks, Panthers, Eagles. That's not a tough schedule. Outside of the Steelers and Seahawks game, you're playing a bunch of below 500 teams. You're playing the Cowboys below 500, you're playing the Niners below 500, you're playing the Panthers below 500, and you're playing the Eagles below 500. So for a team to talk about, and here that's the thing. You look at the other NFC East schedules, look what they're working with. They're working with some of the most brutal schedules in all the league. Washington's got to take advantage of these winnable games if they want to win the NFC East. Next up, we got the Panthers and the Lions. This is another simple one. 20-0. I mean, this was a game to be forgotten if you're a Lions fan. 20-0. Did the Lions... I mean, the Lions came out and looked horrendous. And let's talk about Matthew Stafford taking 5 sacks. He had to endure 5 sacks yesterday. I mean, if it could get any worse for this team, it has for the Lions. They're awful. They really are. And the Panthers, P.J. Walker played well. Played definitely well. He played pretty good. Coming in as the XFL guy. But, I mean, the Lions looked awful, and the Panthers played good. Saints, Falcons, Taysom Hill went out, played very well, looked very good. They started off slow, I will tell you that for sure. They definitely started off slow, but they were able to finish it off strong, and they won 24-9. We now move to the Rams and the Buccaneers game tonight. Buccaneers coming to this game 4-point favorites. The over/under is 48, and the over/under is 48. The injuries are Allen, knee is doubtful. Marpet, guard, is concussion is doubtful, and Hudson, non-injury related, is out. These are some of the rankings this year. Points per game, Rams are 17th. Bucks are 5th. Points per game allowed, Buccaneers are 9th. Rams are 2nd. Total yards per game, Rams are 5th. Bucks are 15th. Pass yards per game, Rams are 11th. Buccaneers are 9th. Rush yards per game, Rams are 7th. Buccaneers are 21st. Yards per game allowed, Rams are 1st, and the Buccaneers are 3rd. So both two good defenses going at it tonight. I already have my prediction here. Let's calculate it. Okay, so I have the Buccaneers winning tonight, 28-24, and I think they cover, and I take the over-under of 48. I have the Buccaneers winning. I think the Buccaneers, a better team. I mean, if Brady can throw the ball good tonight, he will be good. And that might sound like that might sound like an obvious answer, but it's the truth. They've barely won some games when he played bad against the Giants. They barely won. That's not going to slip tonight against the Rams. You can have a bad game and win. Brady's had a couple bad games this year and they've won. He had a bad game against the Giants. I thought he missed some really bad throws. He missed some open receivers really badly. He had a bad game there. Okay. He had a bad game against the Saints. They got crushed. But you can win a game if you don't play your best. Brady's got to play his best, though, because the Rams aren't going to let that happen. So we now move on to fantasy football coming up next. Alrighty. So, we got fantasy football. Like I said, a very good week. I think this was my best week of the year for fantasy football. As a matter of fact, I don't know if I had a week. I think I did. Maybe I did. Yes, I think it might have been the first week of the year. Let me see. Was it? No, it wasn't. Have I had a week this year? Let's see. Week 5. Did I win in both leagues in week 5? Let's see. No, I did not. Week 2, I did in week 3. Week 4. Did I win in both leagues in week 4? No. This might be my first week where I have won in both leagues. Great week for fantasy football, by the way. In both leagues, I was projected to lose, too. And to come out and win in both leagues makes it even so much better. So let's see here. So my schedule right here was loss, win, win, loss, win. Loss, win, win, loss, win. Loss, win, win, loss, win. Win, loss, win, win, loss, win. I don't think so. Let's see what week 7 brought. Schedule. Move it to here. Week 7. No. Oh my goodness. I don't know if I've won in both leagues at all this season. Let's see. Week 8. Week 8 maybe? Week 8. Yes. Okay. So week 8 I did. Week 9. Let's see what week 9 brought. I don't know. I don't think I won in week 9. No, I don't. I know for a fact that I did not win in week 9. Yes, I did not win in week 9. I do remember week 9 because that was the week that I blew the 60-0 week. lead. I knew I did not win in week 9. I knew that for a fact. I didn't even have to really look. I just wanted to double check. The reason I know that is because that week sticks, because that's the week that I blew the 60-0 lead, and I remember coming on here saying that I've got a pretty good, easy week, and I ended up losing. I blew a 60-0 lead. So I do know I did not win week 9. This week, obviously, week 11 I did. Week 10, obviously, I didn't. So I had 1 week this year where I think, according to this, I might be able to take a more in-depth look, but according to this, I've had 1 week this season where I won in both leagues. So, and in this week. So, which is, I guess, pretty good. But anyway, we'll move into this league first. I won 119. I won 119. I won 119 to 107. These were the points. Rogers at 27. Elliott finally played well. He had 70. He had 17. Gurley had 2. Adams had 16. Schuster had 1. Hunter Henry had 10. Moore had 14. Browns defense had a big game. They had 20. Darren Carlson had 7. My bench, Carson had 0. Woods had a bye, or Robinson had a bye. Woods plays tonight. Matt Ryan at 5. Gronk has 6, or Gronk plays tonight as well. Duke Johnson has 3. Ronald Jones plays tonight as well. So obviously, and David Johnson's on IR. So this will move me to 5-6 on the season, which is a big win for me here, as it really gets my playoff chances even better now, even better, even in a better position here. And in my other league, my playoff chances are still staying alive here. I won 140 to 85. Watson had 30. James Robinson had 9. Gibson had 16. Hill had 16. Evans still's got to play. Keenan Allen at 18. Hill had 24. Brown had 12. Eagles defense had 8. Darren Carlson's got 7. Kenyon Drake obviously had 11. Hunter Henry had 10. Rams defense had 4. Clyde Edwards-Helaire had 18. Godwin had he's still got to play. Balaj had 6. By the way, in my other league, I picked up Henry. Someone dropped him, picked him up. I was like, he's playing against the Jets. Young secondary, bad secondary. Got to take advantage of that. He had a big game. I benched him in my other league because I had Taysom Hill, who played well. So this was the week I had 2 quarterbacks. This was the week I had 2 quarterbacks playing. And I hope that it stays that way. Because if it stays that way, I'm feeling very confident. But Fantasy did say if it continues that way, then they're just going to put him at quarterback. Because it's kind of unfair because you're technically playing with 2 quarterbacks, but it's one of those things where you're like, you know what? Hey, got to take advantage of it. So, and it's unfair, but it's also too it's strategy. You know, I mean, when you hear that he's gonna play quarterback, I know some people aren't like me where they're always thinking of fantasy. I'm not always thinking of fantasy, but I mean when I'm not always thinking about fantasy. But I check it daily. I check fantasy every day. That's why I do fantasy basketball, too. I know a lot of people only can do fantasy football because they don't check it every day. But I'm checking fantasy every day. So, they're pretty much every day. So, I understand. But that's also strategy, too. Because, you could sit here and say, oh, he's got Taysom Hill. You could have had Taysom Hill, too, though. No one picked him up. And I picked up Taysom Hill, too, on Friday, which is the day they found out he was the starter. But that could all. It's right, and I'm not joking when I say this. I'm not lying when I say this, because I do take fantasy very seriously. So I wouldn't be. This is kind of a thing that I would do. When I heard that Drew Brees got injured, I immediately thought of picking up Hill. I actually thought of picking up Hill about 2 weeks ago, not to start, but just to have, because there's times where he could go off and he's just sitting on waivers. I didn't get him in my one league, but I got him in my other league. And it stinks because I would have loved to have him in both leagues, but, I'll take it in one league. But that's the thing, if you, I know people aren't going to pay attention to this, but, technically you could have got him because you hear at the beginning of the week, oh, he's going to be out. You could be thinking, oh, Taysom Hill, because a lot of people do fantasy lineups on Tuesday or Wednesday when all the waivers go through. You could be like okay, Taysom Hill. You could also see that his stock went up. Only about 20% of people had it. Only about 10% of people had him. It went up to about 20-30% now of fantasy users having him. When you see his stock go up, when you see his projections go up, when you see his numbers go up and stuff, you could always be thinking, oh, he might start. And you also got to realize it's Winston. I don't think they're going to start Winston over him. So definitely helped me, but I won, and my playoff hopes are still alive there. Now I move on to college football. A lot of good games on. Clemson obviously got canceled, and Miami was already canceled. USC, Utah, USC won. Oklahoma State, Oklahoma won. North Carolina State, Liberty, North Carolina State won. Georgia, Mississippi State. Georgia won. Auburn in Tennessee. Auburn won. Cincinnati, UCF. Cincinnati won. Alabama, Kentucky. Alabama won. Northwestern, Wisconsin. Northwestern won. Oregon, UCLA. Oregon won. Iowa State, Kansas State. Iowa State won. BYU, North Alabama. BYU won. Ohio State, Indiana. This was a very close game. Ohio State won. Coastal Carolina, Appalachian State. Coastal Carolina won. Florida, Vanderbilt. Florida won. Tulsa, Tulane. Tulsa won, obviously. And then Florida, Vanderbilt. Yep. So these are some of the games. There's some games on tomorrow, I think. No. There are no games on tomorrow. Interesting. So there's no games on Tuesday or Wednesday. There's games on... Okay. All right, I get it. Okay, so, so that is it. Those were the college games. Just got some news in here. Joe Burrow tears ACL and MCL. Let's see. Joe Burrow... Okay, so Joe Burrow, this news just came in now. Let's see. Let's read it. So Joe Burrow, news just came in now about Joe Burrow. Like I said, was a awful injury. Let's see. Boom, boom. Joe Burrow tears ACL, MCL. Since he's quarterback, MRI reveals ACL, MCL tears along with other structural issues in his knee. So, yeah. So that stinks. It really does. That really does stink. And along with other structural damage, jeez. All in that one play. So it really does stink. And it stinks too because not only for Bengals fans, because Bengals fans, I mean, you were tanking all season long to get Joe Burrow, and you get him, and he's playing very good for you, Rookie of the Year candidate, and for him to go down like that, and it stinks too for the NFL too because when you hear, it's Bengals, but when you hear, Joe Burrow, you're like, okay, that's a fun game to watch. Even for me, it stinks because I enjoy watching him. When the Jets aren't playing, or even yesterday, even yesterday, I saw highlights of the games and stuff. I mean, it really is fun to watch him play, and it really does stink to see him go down like that and see him go down that badly. It's one thing if he has an injury and he's out 2 to 3 weeks. That's one thing. That's not awful. Injuries are bad. Any injury is bad, but it's not awful. It's another thing tearing his ACL and his MCL and other structural damage and being out for the season. That's another thing. That's a completely other thing. So it really does stink. But hopefully, I was just telling someone now, hopefully he comes back at the same level because he's a fun guy to watch. Everyone in the NFL knows him. I mean, you don't really have to know much about football to know Joe Burrow. Such a big name coming out of college. And such a good guy, too. Really good. He went to LSU, won a national championship, broke so many records there. I'm sure he's on pace. I'm sure he's going to break many records in the NFL as well. A guy who's just unbelievable. And overall, just a good guy as well. It really does stink to see him go down like that. But hopefully next season he's back. And he's playing at the same level. And hopefully, there are those players out there who come back better than ever. There's some players that come back not nearly as good as they were. There's some players who come back where they left off, and there's some players who come back that were even better. I guess it's all depend on how you work it and what you are in. And it's going to be pretty. It's going to be fun to see. It's going to be fun to watch when he comes back. Obviously, it's obviously never a good time to have an injury, but if there were to be a time, it would be towards the end of the year, so that he had all off season to heal, and he doesn't miss much of the season, because now he's got all off season to heal, so he's not going to miss much, which will give him even more time, just straight up healing time. So, and obviously this is a team too that's out of the contention, so it's not like he's tearing it a week before the playoffs, and there you go, there he is, he's out. So, it really does stink. It stinks for the NFL, it stinks for the Bengals, and overall just. It's bad. It stinks for Burrow, but hopefully he'll be okay, and he'll come back next season and pick up where he left off, which was a Rookie of the Year candidate, and let's see what he does next season. So it's gonna be interesting to see what all happens there. But with all that being said, that will do it for the podcast today. Hope you enjoyed it. I will see you all back here tomorrow. Tonight's game, another good game, Buccaneers-Rams. A lot of good games on this weekend. Another good game, I think, tonight as well. So with all that being said, I'll see you all back here tomorrow. Hope you enjoyed it, and thanks for watching.